With the holiday season right around the corner, the WTOL 11 weather team is keeping a close eye on weather patterns that could impact our winter weather this season. Now that November is well underway, snow and cold temperatures on the mind of many, and you may be wondering, are we due for a winter this year? After several tame winter seasons, I'm going to break down the data as to what you can expect as we inch towards the holidays and the winter season. Now, our first snowfall of the season this year is actually a bit later than usual. So when do we normally see that first snow in Toledo, Northwest Ohio, and Southern Michigan? The statistics show that in mid-November, more specifically November 17th, that is when we see that first snowfall of the season in the Toledo metro. Now, first snow is defined as measurable snow, which is anything 1/10 of an inch or more. What if we stack up to about an inch of snowfall, the first meaningful snow of the winter season? That comes a bit later in November, typically right after Thanksgiving. That first inch of snow accumulation occurs on November 29th, and as we head towards December, that is when snowfall becomes more likely, especially accumulating snow. So what do the statistics say about November snowfall? Even though we're off to a bit of a later start than usual to the snowfall season, things can change towards the latter half of the month. A normal November features 1.7 inches of snowfall, really just leapfrogging into the start of the winter season, but not really providing any meaningful snow. That's typical though. However, some Novembers can really dose out significant snowfall. The highest ever monthly November snow, close to 18 inches, and that occurred in 1966. So it goes to show sometimes winter can strike early. Last year, we only saw 2/10 of an inch of November snow accumulation, and the year prior, paltry November snowfall totals as always. So the winter season as a whole, how does snowfall break down on a month-by-month basis? For those who have been living in the area for quite a while, this may not be surprising that January is statistically the snowiest month of the year. Even though November really doesn't bring much meaningful snow on average, we start to see some more significant accumulations in December with an average of over half a foot of snowfall. We double that during the month of January with over a foot of snowfall on average, and the tail end of the winter season, as we've seen in recent years, can really bring some harsh wintry weather in terms of big snowstorms and bitter cold. And February on average, our second snowiest month, with just a hair over 10 inches of average accumulation. Now, just for those snow lovers out there, the snowiest season on average, that occurred in recent memory, 86.3 inches of accumulation, 2013 to 2014. And the least snow, well, last winter, hardly a winter at all, with less than 10 inches of total accumulation over the course of the season. So what about the month of November in particular? The last two Novembers have really not brought much in the way of snow accumulation, just 2/10 in 2023 and 4/10 the year prior. You have to go back to 2021 for any sort of significant November snow, and that did bring us well above average early season snow, amounting to close to 4 inches of accumulation. And November of 2020 was closer to normal, with 1.3 inches of snowfall, despite several record high temperatures that happened during November of 2020. So that's how the numbers stack up in terms of the month of November. Of course, you may be wondering, after last winter that really didn't produce much snowfall at all, are we due for one this year? Let's break down the numbers behind last winter's paltry snowfall totals that failed to even reach the 10-inch barrier. A normal season of snowfall in the Toledo area features snowfall totals a little bit over 3 feet of accumulation, and we were less than a third of that number, over 27 inches below normal, the season of 2023 to 2024. The least snowy seasons on record. Of course, topping that list, 2023 to 2024, at the very top in yellow, the only time we failed to even reach the double-digit snowfall amounts. 1918 to 1919, not much snow with just a hair over a foot. If you look back to 82 to 83, 12.5 inches. Of course, the year after that really was the polar opposite with much heavier snowfall amounts. 1948 to 1949, and rounding out the list, another recent winter, 2022 to 2023. It seems like these winters without much snowfall becoming a little bit more commonplace, at least based on the latest statistics. The greatest snowfall 2013 to 2014 with over 86 inches of accumulation, and in the Toledo area we average a little bit over 3 feet of snowfall total. So how is climate change impacting winter weather? Of course, each and every winter is merely an anecdote amidst the broader range of data, and we have to look at the bigger trends to infer how winter is changing. Last winter, of course, fit within the fingerprint or the blueprint of what climate change is doing and making winters a bit milder and less snowy on average. So here's some of the biggest changes that we're seeing to the winter season. In general, December weather is growing milder. In fact, December is the month that has been affected by climate change the most of all 12 months in the Toledo area. Winters are also becoming more backloaded. Basically what that means is we're getting off to a slower start as far as snowfall is concerned, and we're saving some of that snowfall for after the new year. In other words, a lot of February snowstorms, but much quieter December weather, more mild days becoming commonplace, and also a reminder that weather does not equal climate, and the day-to-day variations in the weather are due to jet stream patterns and individual fluctuations in our climate, as opposed to those broader trends that are exemplified by climate change. In the past decade alone, new climate data shows us that winter has warmed up by anywhere from 2 to 3 degrees depending on the month, and that's significant because that's over a relatively short period of time, and the changes within the last half century to century have been even greater than that. December is the month that has been affected the most by climate change, with a warming trend of over 3 degrees, and of course that warming trend is one of the reasons that November snowfall is becoming less commonplace. More precipitation in the form of liquid, less precipitation in the form of snowfall. December changes as a whole. Not surprisingly, as the last few years have attested to, December snowfall is decreasing. In general, temperatures are going way up during the month of December, with a 3+ degree warming trend based on the latest climate data. Snowfall has actually gone down, and that latest data set shows us that snowfall during the month of December, on average, is almost an inch below what it used to be. Mild days becoming more commonplace, and that could potentially impact white Christmas chances as well. In general, the chances of that blanket of snow on Christmas morning are becoming less likely. Of course, that is what the statistics show us based on the framework of climate change, but year-to-year variation, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have white Christmases. It's just going to be a little bit less common on average. So how has each and every month been impacted by climate change? December is the month at the very tail end of this graph that has seen the biggest warming trend in terms of climate. Late spring and early summer has also seen some big changes, May and June, with over 2 degrees of warming. And as far as the winter season is concerned, November temperatures have not really been affected quite as much, with only a 1.3 degree warming trend. Compare that to December, which has been affected substantially by climate change. And after the new year, January and February have also seen that warming trend, but it's been less noticeable than the month of December. In other words, December snowfall becoming less common, and December temperatures are going way up. You'll want to stay tuned to that WTOL 11 winter weather outlook. We are tracking some changes in the weather pattern that could potentially be favorable for snow lovers. And of course, we're going to keep a very close eye on how the weather evolves during December, January, and February, and what you can expect this winter season.